Welcome to the Awesemo Early Bird Podcast. It's your old pal EMac coming to you with one TMcB, that is Terry McBride, as we get ready for Wednesday MLB action, the last day before NBA, and we have slates abounding. We have early slates, we have late slates, we have main slates. They're everywhere. Not all of the sites have posted things yet, but for starters, FanDuel is going from 3 o'clock through the first, or not all the way to the 7 o'clock games. They're not counting the 7 o'clock games, but there's 4 at 6 o'clock. So again, the site that used to thin slice everything as much as possible has made an about face at least through the first week of Major League Baseball. Terry, do you think this is trend or mirage?
Judging by how FanDuel does everything, I'd say maybe an accident completely. Probably got an intern somewhere working out of a closet at home, putting these things together. So judging by what they do with their usual prize pools, I expect to see everything drop back down, get thin sliced, like you're saying again next week, and back to normal.
Yes, and the wild card, of course, is going to be when basketball shows up. We have no idea what's going to happen. And basketball, in DFS terms, tends to be much more popular than baseball. The baseball people are more fervent and they will play the majority of the season, but it's stat geeks. It's people that are really into the sport, which is not the masses. The masses can really make things move for NBA, even on short slates, which is absolutely wild. We saw that last year with the NBA playoffs, where there were literally $100,000 top prize showdown contests almost every night, and in some cases, I think they did go up to 250, which is just crazy considering there's one game in those situations for the finals.
Right, totally wild. And with, like you said, with NBA coming back, the popularity of that sport, I expect to see some of these 100K prize pool top prizes go away very quickly. We were having those discussions when KBO was going on, and everybody was saying, well, what happened to the $25,000 top prize today? Well, there's a NASCAR race today, and they're going to put their money into that instead of Korean League Baseball, much as we might love it. So I think we're going to see a lot of that happen again with, when the NBA comes back. They're going to put a lot of that money, a lot of the guaranteed prize pools into the NBA. And it makes sense, with their business model. It makes total sense. Hopefully they leave some scraps for us to pick up here on the MLB, and that's what we'll be doing all season long.
Yep. So we will find out. If you have not realized, they've done a couple of shows here on Awesemo to get you ready for NBA. Those are up on the YouTube channel right now. We had one tonight with Josh Engelman, Dave Loughran, you know him better as Lofty D, and recent addition Greg Ehrenberg, who you got to see with me on Sunday for baseball. So he's going to be doing a lot of the heavy lifting on basketball, come and do a little bit of weekend baseball for us. So he's coming into the rotation as well. You guys know his work out there. He has been in the industry for the last few years, providing information at DK Playbook, among a couple of other sites. So he's definitely very knowledgeable, and you'll want to check out what he, Lofty, and Josh are talking about. We'll see a little bit of our friend Rinpak, who we last saw winning $100,000 in PGA, coming off 2 different $100,000 nights in NBA. And oh, by the way, someone was telling me he won $20,000 on Monday night in baseball. Talk about a heater. Wow.
Not too shabby. Not too shabby at all by our pal Rinpak.
So
get a look at what some of those lineups he's making, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So, by the way, we all use all the tools here at Awesemo. Awesemo uses them himself. That's Alex Baker. You want to check those out. We've got a great deal going on right now. It is promo code RESTART, and that will get you half off 1 month of Awesemo All Access. So that's $45, but it gets you everything. NBA, MLB, PGA, NASCAR, League of Legends, literally everything. And by the way, we've got some season-long football stuff going on. We're doing some best ball draft information. We've got all of the pertinent players have actual player profiles written up, etc. There's all sorts of goodness here at Awesemo, so you're definitely going to want to check that out. That's $150 a day. And by the way, that gets you half of the baseball season, because the baseball season is 1 week in. It's got 9 weeks to go, so not quite half, but basically you're getting half of the baseball season. You're getting all the way through into the first week of playoffs for basketball, and you're getting everything else for just $45. This is, we had 4 months of nothing. Now we're gonna have 9 weeks of pure insanity, and we'll have to see if NFL makes it back too.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious to see what the NFL does. You and I were discussing a little bit. I think that was offline yesterday, just what they might do and hopefully they find a way to maybe set up a couple bubbles, do it regionally, something to do it safe. But yeah, fingers crossed we get football back too, and that is just going to be wild if we can drop that on top of all this in the end. So we will see what happens.
Absolutely.
It's definitely been interesting.
Absolutely. All right, so we're going to hit these 5 early game pitching matchups just real quick. Again, we don't know where everything is going to cut these. So there's a 340 game, there's a 405 game, there's a 610, and a 640. My guess is DraftKings will probably do that 6, 610, and 640. FanDuel, as I mentioned earlier, going with all 5 of those games. So this first one, oh, and by the way, we're back around to most of these pitchers have already pitched once since we've gone through everybody's rotation. Not all of them, but most of the ones, at least on the early slate. And then we've got a couple openers there on the later slate. But Herman Marquez going against Frankie Montas, as this will be a 12:40 local start in Oakland. That's coming off a night game, so we're probably going to see a little bit different of some of the lineups. It would not shock me if a Chris Davis gets a day off. Charlie Blackmon is back from dealing with COVID. Wouldn't shock me if he was one of the guys that got the night off. Could it be an Arenado or Story before a travel day? We'll have to see. But focusing on Herman Marquez, tough matchup for him going against Oakland. A lot of power, a lot of strikeouts. Herman Marquez, above average strikeouts, and he's not in Coors Field. We like that. Frankie Montas, catch as catch can. I don't know what to do with him. Was okay playing with him. Was satisfied with the result. If you're playing this early slate, I think you want to go back to him. Any highlights for this duo, Terry?
Yeah, I think I come down on the Montas side of that equation. I think the A's definitely have the pop to get to Herman Marquez, and it's a spot, like you said, we might see a few guys sit, but I think there's going to be enough in that lineup that he's not a guy I'm going to want to roster on the pitching side. But Montas really intrigues me. We've seen a ton of quality out of this kid when he's healthy, when he's on the mound. K rate in the upper 20s. Didn't really walk too many people when he was healthy. In around a 5.5, 6.5 walk rate. So reasonable guy, reasonable play here. Especially if that Rockies lineup is a little bit diminished, if we see a guy like Blackmon coming back from that, I could see getting some of the shares of him in there.
All right, let's see. Do we have any good notes here? I am just gonna look ahead. Let's see. Herman Marquez took a no-hitter into the 6th inning on opening day, gave up just 2 hits, 1 run in Texas. So he's going, and then Montas looked to go deeper in his second start of the year, went 81 pitches. He was limited. That was going to be his cap. He did complete 4 innings and ended up getting, they led the A's to a win over the Angels, but you gotta, it's the pitcher of record in the 5th inning. He was not in the 5th inning, but these little blurbs here, courtesy of MLB.com probable pitchers page. A little bit of alliteration there. On to our next one. We've got Madsen Bumgarner going against Lance Lynn. Lance Lynn, 6 scoreless on opening day. You had Bumgarner, who was scoreless into the 6th, but then had a 2-out, 3-run double by Eric Hosmer. He of the, 6 RBI. Wow. And then he actually got sick himself. No, not COVID. Well, theoretically, but stomach bug. So Bumgarner, Lance Lynn. I'm not excited by either of these guys. I will lean towards Lance Lynn. He has been a solid, though not spectacular pitcher. I've forgotten how to talk tonight. And then the roof likely will be closed in Arlington.
Yeah, and you're probably right on leaning toward Lynn. I'm a Mad Bum fan for some reason. It's a guy I can't quit. So even though he's been garbage the last couple of years, you're talking about a guy with, I'm just looking it up here, he's approaching 4 each of the last few years. So he's not the guy he used to be. That's an okay pitcher, but we can't think of him as Madsen Bumgarner anymore. But if we're thinking of him as just a guy that's going to be up there, probably a reasonable price, probably not a ton of ownership, I can probably talk myself into rolling the Mad Bum dice one more time here at least. That Rangers lineup, a lot of pop in it. It's dangerous, but there's a ton of strikeouts in there as well. So I think he could put up an okay start. It's not something I'm trying to push on anybody too hard. I do like the Lynn side of it better. I think he gets these D-backs pretty well here. So that would be the strong recommendation. The heart recommendation would be going with Bummy.
All right. Our next one here, we have Max Scherzer going against the Toronto Blue Jays. This is now a home and home series. The teams are just wrapping up their game as we are recording this now in Washington. They will be playing in Toronto on Wednesday night. There has been some shifting and some ripple effects in some of the scheduling, with the Marlins not playing until at the earliest next Monday. So this has caused MLB to move around a couple different teams' schedules just so they can rearrange. They're not changing the number of games teams are playing against each other. They're trying to tweak things accordingly, so they can have these other teams that have multiple series ahead, so they can get some double headers in those. They've also got one, I think it was the National, I think it's somehow it's the Nationals and the Marlins that got tweaked, but they each have an off day before one of their series in late September. So they're saying, all right, well, we can make up one game there, a doubleheader on each of the two series they have coming up, and that'll help them catch up on their games. So again, we don't know everything that's happening here, but we do have all the players that we know that are playing today, and all of the teams that are we knowing this whole forgetting to talk thing. Not good when you're on a podcast. In any event,
coming back from like 4 months off, working our way back in.
Yeah, let's pick some new words here, perhaps, and just say that everything is lining up. We know everything that's happening tomorrow. If you have downloaded a lot of information, I'm curious to see what happens with our good buddy Josh Engelman on the Daily Strategy Show, because he usually downloads the schedule well in advance for the entire season. He's not going to be able to do that this year because things are tweaking. So if you were expecting something slightly different, we've got that. We're going to get to talk about Garrett Cole on the later slate, or the main slate. So there's some good pitching today, and part of it was just some of these schedule tweaks. So Nationals with Scherzer going against what looks like Nate Pearson here. Let's see, it says Pearson is the #1 prospect here. This is his debut. We'll see what happens. Not the easiest of matchups against the Nats, but they are without Juan Soto, and of course Anthony Rendon is now in Anaheim. I'm liking Scherzer. We don't have pricing yet, but he's going to be the guy to build around.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a no-brainer. Max Scherzer against this Toronto lineup, I think he's going to just breeze through this team. I mean, we know who Max is. He's going to be striking out a ton of these hitters. I like him to limit the opportunities. You know, we're just going to maybe see the Jays scratch out a couple hits, maybe a run. This should be a dominant start for Max. There's no other place to really look if you're just looking for a chalky pitcher. Probably 75% going to be owned somewhere around there on a 4-gamer. So you're going to have to get different with your bats and get creative with your lineups. But Max is absolutely just a guy you can plug and play anytime.
All right.
The Pearson side of things, I don't know a ton about him. I'm curious to see him. He's been an up-and-comer a little bit in that system. So I'm just pulling up his repertoire on Brooks to just see what he throws. Brooks Baseball is a great site if you guys haven't checked it out for a lot of pitch mix information. So it looks like he throws a 95-mile-an-hour 4-seamer and a slider. He doesn't get a ton. He gets a lot of fly balls off the slider. I wouldn't call it a wipeout slider, but he does get a little bit of above league average swing and miss on it. So he's a guy that might get away with something against the Nats, but not really somebody I want to focus on. I'd probably lean into the Nats bats a little bit against them.
All right, I've got DK pricing up. Let me just, while we're on the 6 o'clock game, see if, or pardon me, I've got FanDuel pricing. Let me see if DK has posted their slate yet. No, they've done some turbo games though, or pardon me, that's their new version of this. So if you guys haven't paid attention, so DraftKings has a new format. So they have their short slates, and they go either classic. It seems to be if it's 4 games or more, it's what they call classic, which is what we're used to, the 2 pitchers, etc. If they have their short slates, these are generally 2 and 3 game slates, though, unless it's the late night slate, which they've done both ways so far. So I'm not sure exactly what they're doing, but just pay attention before you, depending on your optimizer. Not all of them are set up to handle this just yet. But you get 1 pitcher, 2 infielders, 2 outfielders, and 2 utility players. So it's kind of fun. I like it more than Showdown for baseball by a long shot. Showdown to me, or single game slate, is best for golf, and it's best for maybe football. Maybe. And then that's only if it's been good pricing and there's just not, the herd is not all on one thing. Same thing with basketball. If the herd's all on one thing, it's just not fun to play those. But this is a new way to go. So no one's really solved it yet, but you get 2 infield, 2 outfield, and 2 utilities, plus you get the pitcher. The scoring is the same, and this is the same version they used for their Japanese baseball, and this is also similar to what FanDuel was using for Korean baseball. So they're just trying some new things out there. Pricing is different, but it's a kind of a cross between Showdown and basically 50% more of normal pricing, just because there's less players in the player pool and they're trying to make you have decisions, but you can still stack 4 batters. So I've been playing around with it a little bit here, Terry.
Yeah, I was playing around with the format. I haven't gotten into it for MLB since MLB's been back on DK, but I was playing a little bit of it on FanDuel when the KBO was going on, and I kind of like it. The ability to not have to sweat position that much, get to any kind of bats that you want, and we talk about that a lot. If we're leaving salary on the table, we want to be able to combine whatever bats that we want in the lineups that we're getting to and our pitcher. But sometimes you get those wacky situations where, well, this team's got 3 first basemen, and none of them qualify anywhere else on DK. So I can't get 3 of them in my lineup. On FanDuel, maybe I can get 2 in because you've got the utility spot. So it gives you a little bit more flexibility, being able to kind of jam in whoever you want. Maybe a little bit more public-friendly product, but that might be good for people with sharp projections like the tools that you get from the site. You're walking into a contest like that where it's more casual, more friendly with the sharp tools that we have. You might be able to dominate. We saw that from a few of our guys in KBO. One of our guys in Slack, I think, took first place in 4 of the big GPPs. I think he took it down 4 times. It was at least 3. So, I mean, we had people killing that format. So I think there's some edge there.
Yeah, and if we look at just quickly to talk about their pitchers, and then we'll just go back to the matchups and then get onto the main slate, because we could do a 2-hour show here just easily. Because hey, sports are back and we love talking about them.
Right.
But Scherzer 12, and again, this is this format. This is not the classic format. Scherzer's 12,000, Lucas Giolito 11,400, Sonny Gray 10,600. So you've got $1,400 separating those 4 guys. Scherzer's going to be wildly popular, as well he should be, and they'll be easily like one silly cheap bat. And here's where you're okay punting a 9-hitter, a crappy catcher, or whatever it is, because if you're getting Scherzer, that's a difference maker. People are going to catch on to that real quick, where you could go down just a little bit, get Giolito at a third or less popularity of Scherzer, or you could get Sonny Gray in a similar, third or less of whatever Scherzer's going to be, and set yourself up for a monster leverage situation. And we've seen weirdness happen in baseball all the time. That's where you have to be willing to go a little bit different in some of these. But let's talk about those specific matchups, Terry. We'll go with Scherzer. Remember, he got rain-shortened game where he went 5 1/3. Probably would have just finished out 6. I wouldn't expect him to go more than 6 today, but I think 100 pitches is a reasonable expectation in this matchup. So kind of wrapping him up with this new context, where do you want to talk about him? Do you go with him, or do you want to look towards 2 of our next pairs here in Lucas Giolito or Sonny Gray?
So I think what you're saying in that type of a format is interesting, right? If you can work something in where you're paying down and getting somebody weird into your lineup bats-wise, like a 9-hitter, a slap-hitting 9-hitter guy who wraps around to the top of your lineup with some of the big hitters in that stack that you're playing, and it makes it work salary-wise, you can afford Max Scherzer, I like that move. If it's somebody that nobody's going to be on anyway, you got to get that guy to pop. Or hey, sometimes the boss won a couple $100K with 0 in his lineup last night in the utility spot on FanDuel. So anything can happen sometimes, but we're shooting for that guy to give you a 9, a 14, something like that. He doesn't have to hit 2 home runs because he's getting you Max Scherzer, right? So you're hopefully getting that point differential there. That said, I love Lucas Giolito. I think he's in a good spot here. I think he can do well against the Indians there. So it's a consideration. Sonny Gray's never been one of my guys. He's proven me wrong over and over again, but he's just a guy I don't trust. Maybe it's a little bit of bias of seeing him pitch in Yankee Stadium when he was here. That was not the good Sonny Gray. The Sonny Gray we've seen since leaving the Bronx has been the good Sonny Gray again. That's a tough matchup against the Cubbies, so might not be the play, but if I was getting off of Max, I would probably look toward Giolito. But, both tricky spots. Yep. Good offense.
Now, FanDuel makes it a little bit interesting as well. Scherzer is 10-9. Sonny Gray is 10 even. Kyle Hendricks, he of the opening day shutout, 9,200. Lucas Giolito, 91. Lynn, 89. Bumgarner, 86. Herman Marquez, 85. I mentioned Marquez because people are going to find the extra 2,000 to go up to any of those first 4 guys on the list. So it's going to be an interesting situation for leverage. And again, we kind of talked about it, but it works over here on FanDuel, even though they do have 5 games on their slate. Anything you want to mention before we go on to the main slates now?
What was Montas on that list that you just read off?
Did
What was the price?
Oh, he has 7,700.
That might be. I might look at that. I might eyeball that pretty hard. If you get Montas in there at that price and not a lot of people are on him, that gives you pretty much any bat you want. Not really digging into that slate. That's just a top of the head kind of a call, but it's something I would definitely look into. And if I'm playing this slate tomorrow, I will be.
Yeah, and that's a valid point. So this is where you get different perspectives, you get different strategies and adjustments and tweaks, and that's what makes DFS fun, especially as people are getting used to coming back in, shaking off the rust. We didn't get much lead in for this here for baseball, so that's kind of key. All right, now we're on to our main slate. So we've got the pricing and such for this up. We've got the important things. We're going to go game by game. We'll focus again on the pitchers. It'll be a little more organized. Although in our first game here, it's Los Angeles Dodgers against the Houston Astros in Houston. Remember, rematch of the 2017 World Series. Houston won along with the garbage cans. Have not looked to see if there are any hit batsmen yet in the game that's going on tonight. But we have Dustin May, a lefty, I believe. Yeah, he's a lefty, going against Houston. That is a tough order for anybody. Houston, we don't know who's going to pitch. This would be potentially Verlander's slot, but of course he's got an elbow injury. They could go with an opener. We're just not sure yet what their plans are going to be. What do you want to do with Dustin May? What do they call him? The Ginger Syndergaard, I think, is one of his nicknames. Yeah, have you seen his hair? He's like 6'7" and just bright red hair.
Yeah, he is. That is an apt nickname because that is exactly what he looks like. He looks like a ginger Thor, coming out there. So that's pretty on point. He's a kid I'm excited to see. You say, what are you going to do with him? Probably watch him pitch. I definitely will have a little bit of him. I'll get him into a couple lineups just, to have him. But he's a kid I'm really excited to see him, really take on this lineup and get a true, few opportunities to start. He's a high-end kid, high-end prospect. He was coming out of the pen. He was mostly last year. He was a 2.90 FIP, 22.7% strikeouts, 3.5% walk rate. So very, very good walk rate coming into the league. Reasonable strikeout rate. We'll see that probably go up for a pitcher of his quality. Minor leagues, he was a 25-ish strikeout, so around league average. Mid-threes FIP through his minor league career. So very, very good minor league numbers. That said, challenging spot, like you called out. Not a lot of strikeouts in the heart of this order. Going by steamer projections, there's four or five hitters right in the middle of this order that are going to strike out 15% or less for the season. So that's a tough challenge, like you said, for anybody. For a rookie coming up, it's a little bit daunting. Kid who doesn't have that many major league innings under his belt. So it's a game I want to watch. I'll probably lean a little bit more into the Astros bats here. Get some of those right-handed Astros. We all know who the studs are on that lineup. I still like Carlos Correa as a guy who's going under the radar still for people at shortstop. I think he's a play that you can jam in there. Power's still very real, still in that bat. Don't sweat the bad batting average on balls in play that he had last year. That's still a stud shortstop play. So I think that's our angle for that slate tomorrow. For that game.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And he's got about 160 major league batters faced under his belt, so not that many yet. But he is definitely going to be good, and they are not going to be overextending him or pushing him too much at all. So as you mentioned, tough matchup, fun to watch, but maybe we sit this one out. We'll have to wait, and let's just see if Major League... No, nobody has a list of who their pitcher is going to be yet. So let's go on to our next game here. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I do have what came down with my import was Christian Javier, who I assume is an opener. That was when I looked him up. His either that or he's going to be very good. He's got a 10.5 8K per 9 projection. So I'm assuming he's just going to be acting as an opener. So I do have that. But, bullpen game. This Astros bullpen, bringing Josh James into the rotation. I think a couple of the other guys, the key strikeout guys out of this pen are injured. So it might be a spot to get some Dodgers in your lineup. It might be something to consider. Take a look at where they fall in the stack tool tomorrow. And if there's a good spot, they were very advantageous at the final run of the stack tool today. So I would keep an eye on Dodgers tomorrow.
All right, so your guy here, yes, here's the note. Javier will start Wednesday's game against the Dodgers unless he's needed in relief on Tuesday. Okay, thank you. That's so helpful. He's going to start unless he doesn't, but here's his, let's see. So he's done rookie ball, in 2015 and 16, went up to low A in 17. In 18, he was in high A. In 19, he went high A, double A, and triple A. Has 11 innings under his belt, 2 starts in triple A last year. That's where you're seeing that 13.1 K percentage. In double A, over 11 starts, 17 games, 74 innings pitched. He had nearly a 14 K rate. So he
Ugly
is
walks though, right?
yeah, the walks aren't that great. Where is the walks? The walks were in that double A in those 74 innings, 4.7 per 9. That's Nucleluche. And he got a little better in his two starts, 11 innings in AAA with the 3.7. So it is truly a Nucleluche. Ball's kind of all over the place, and it's fast. But you getting some strikeouts here. The ground ball's almost non-existent. That's going to be tough. His career ground balls is less than 33%. So
this profile is like a guy who could give up 2 home runs in his opening appearance. I mean, that is a guy we probably want to target and
or strike out 5 in the first 2 innings. So we'll see what's going on with there, but we'll put a pin in that one. On to the next one where we do have both our guys. Charlie Morton coming off a bit of a rough outing there on opening day. Gave up 6 runs in 4 innings. That is the most he has allowed as a Tampa Bay Devil Ray. On the other side, we have Mike Soroka, who managed to go 6 scoreless on opening day, but did not get the win. He finished second last year for Rookie of the Year. I don't really know what to do with this one. Morton has changed the pitch mix over the years, is definitely good, but this one's in Atlanta, not Turner It's not Turner Field either. Now I've forgotten baseball parts. It's not Tropicana Field. It is what is it? SunTrust Park,
yeah,
I believe. I would lean towards Soroka in this one over Morton, but Morton's a good enough pitcher. I'm not looking to go with the Bravos. What is your initial take on this one?
I think I come down with you on that one, and it's one that I'm definitely going to be digging into both of these pitchers a little bit more tomorrow. They're both guys that I like in a vacuum. The matchups are a little bit tricky here, but I think the Soroka side is a little bit stronger. We saw him have a really, really good rookie year. He was a 2.68 ERA with a 3.45 FIP, so FIP's a little bit higher, but nothing to really be concerned about. Suggests he got a little bit, of help from defense and luck, but that's nothing to be, concerned about with a 3.45. He was only a 20.3% strikeout rate, so you could see him, maybe get a few more strikeouts this year. We'd like to see a little bit of an uptick in that, but great walk rate, only around 4%, not putting too many guys on, limits opportunities. So he's a kid that I like a lot. There's Rays bats that can get to him here. There's a bunch of left-handers in this lineup, some lefty power. So I'm not worried about him, but it's definitely a spot I want to consider how much exposure I have. And that's probably going to be really dictated by how much the field is getting to him. So I'm going to keep a close eye on that. On the Morton side of things, he's a guy, for some reason, I don't end up with a lot. And he's a guy that I like. I love the K per 9. He's been over 10 K per 9 over the last 3 years. And it's really due to being in the Astros system a few years ago. They were the ones that made those tweaks for him. And we see them do it time and again, just tweaking these pitchers, getting the spin rate up, and they come out of that system different guys. And Charlie's been that guy since then. So he's a guy I like a lot. Tricky spot against the Braves, though. They're a quality offense. Team I'm going to be going to a ton this year, like I've said already. They've got sneaky power. Matt Adams, a lefty versus a righty, he just crushes right-handed pitching a lot of the time. So even a guy like that can just pop one out here and ruin Charlie's day. So it's a tricky spot for Charlie. I'll have some, but again, I'm not quite sure how much.
Yeah, and that's, again, we talk about it, but leverage, we talk about it a lot, but leverage really has become kind of everything here for baseball. So you're going to want to keep your eye on that. Soroka actually is the 5th most expensive pitcher of the day on FanDuel. So 8,800. He's behind Garrett Cole and Jake DeGrom, who we'll talk about, along with Chris Paddock. They are at 11.7, 11.2, and 97, respectively. Morton is just 600 more than Soroka in this one. But remember, on FanDuel, the key is you get the quality start points. So you really want to give consideration to Cole or to DeGrom, who have the best chance of anybody making it 6 innings. The win is, a nice on top of that, but a quality start, you need the 6 innings. That can be a difference maker because a lot of the other guys may not get there.
Absolutely.
And even the guys we're talking about may not get there either. They just have a better a better
we just have to
chance.
trust that those, those big stud type aces are going to be the ones that we're going to be most likely to make it 6.
Yeah.
And that's
Unless
really
it rains, unless something weird happens. They'll
and
make it
TMcB,
unless they
what
don't.
are the odds?
Yeah. Goodness. All right. And then Soroka's the 4th most expensive on DK at $9,500. Morton is $700 more. DeGrom gets top honors at 12 even. Garrett Cole is at 11.4. So we do have some good pitching to talk about on this slate. That will make things interesting, more so than what we had the last 2 days. Lofty said it best. And Josh, just because it's a crappy slate doesn't mean it's one that you don't want to play. We have learned here with the way Alex Awesemo himself, the way he builds his lineups. Now, we don't all emulate what he's doing, but his lineups do so much better when the chalk does not do as well. And that doesn't mean it busts. It just means they don't quite get to where they need to be, or there's some chaos and carnage of the unexpected happening. He's not over leveraging on anything else. I mean, last night I think he had at one point he had 70 between 75 and 90% Tyler Glass now. So he's willing to go over the field in certain situations, but then the way he builds his stack and other things, it prepares him to be able to move ahead of large swaths of the field with just minor things, reasonable outcomes not occurring. And it just gives him the move that he needs to get up to the top. And we saw him win 2 different $100,000 prizes last night. So there are different ways to do this, but that's definitely one way. And baseball is just pure chaos. We talk about the variance, we talk about the randomness. That's dialed up to 11 this year with the illnesses and the ramp up, sit for 4 months, try to ramp up again. Chaos, it's out of control. So just keep in mind all of that. These are not sayings that we're just using. We're not paying lip service to this. This is why we do all of the shows that we do, including the strategy show, the deep dive, and then we get into live before lock, where you can get those last minute changes and tweaks. But that's why we do so many shows, is we want to explain to everybody how we're using the tools, how we're being successful. And again, that promo code is RESTART to get 1 full month of everything, literally everything we have, for $45. All right, Terry, let's continue on because they want to hear about baseball. But I think I got enough sales in there. I think we're good for the rest of the show. Sorry, Tom.
I honestly didn't even know you were doing a plug there for half of it. I was just waiting to jump in and keep talking.
Yeah, well, I wasn't, and then I was like, well, I've gone long enough. Might as well put a tag on that. Let's wrap a bow with that. Speaking of wrapping a bow on something, Danny Duffy going against Matt Boyd. Couple lefties here. Gave up some crooked numbers in their first innings, and neither went particularly far. Matt Boyd had a 30-pitch first inning. He ended up allowing a 7.2 ERA. He only got 2 strikeouts. Duffy did a little bit better. He only got 2 strikeouts. He went 4 1/3, only gave up 2 runs. So not too shabby there for him. What do you want to do with these guys? I'm feeling that we want to pick against the Tigers as much as possible yet again. Duffy, yeah, a little inconsistent. Yes, he's amongst those last 2 years home run leaders. I think he's in the top 20. He has teammates that are ahead of him. But Matt Boyd on the other side, love that lefty ability, but we don't know how far into the game he's going to go. He's been dealing with a variety of injuries throughout his career that have kind of curtailed his production. So a lot of talent, a lot of strikeout upside among these guys. Decent matchup against the opposing teams. How are you feeling about this? Because there's not good feelings when you choose those 2 guys.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe it. It's really kind of an uncomfortable start if you have either of these guys in that starting pitching spot, especially on the one-pitcher sites. It's a spot that I'll probably have some of. I typically end up with some Danny Duffy when he's on the slate and in a reasonable spot. I think this is a reasonable spot. For 6,400, I'm getting a middling projection on him, but it's somebody that it's a playable projection. It's not that far down from the top few guys in my list here. Getting a little bit better mark on Boyd, but he's about 2,000 more on FanDuel, so probably not going to be leaning too hard into him. He's a guy I don't get to all that often. Shockingly high home runs per 9 against right-handed hitters for Boyd. I think it was something like 195 last year. Just gives up a long ball a lot there. So I think some of the right-handed power from the Royals might be in play. A Jorge Soler, a Sal Perez, you get some of those guys in your lineup. Maybe take out a few shares against Matt Boyd. But I will roll, a few of them just for differentiation purposes. If he's somebody that everybody's trending away from, it's something I might look to lean into a little bit harder. So that's another spot where I'm going to keep an eye on what the ownership looks like and see where I want to get to. Duffy, he's come down his last 2 years, his K percentage, his last 4 straight years, his K percentage has come down. His walk rate has gone up. He was barely 20% strikeout rate, 8% walk rate in 2019, 10% walk rate in 2018. So he's a guy who's yielding a lot of opportunities, not striking too many guys out. A CJ Cron could get to him here, from the Tigers. There's not a ton on this Tigers team, but I think we said that last night, and they paid us back with a couple home runs today already. So it's a team you can look at, stick a few of the right-handed power bats in there. Jonathan Scope hitting second for this squad, projected 226 ISO. We know that he can get to a lefty. So there's a couple guys you can build an early lineup stack with. Neither of these sides with bats or arms is really something I'm excited about for tomorrow's slate, though.
Yep. And then we had, let's see, I've got this information up. So Duffy went 65 pitches, and then Boyd actually went 88. 11 fly balls for Boyd, 2 hit by pitches, or 2 batters hit by pitch, 2 walks, 1 home run, 4 earned runs, just 2 strikeouts, but the 11 fly balls versus 6 ground balls. That's the opposite of the ratio you want to see. He was probably lucky to only give up 4 runs. Most of that meltdown was kind of in one, it looks like one sequence where he basically put 3 runners on base and a single and didn't get an out. So he put in 1 run that way. But just keep that in mind. The talent is there. The unpredictability is there even more. Nate Eovaldi going against the Mets. Jake DeGrom on the other side here. This one is kind of interesting. We saw Eovaldi get a little bit of popularity in his last start. He did go 89 pitches, which was nice. 12 ground balls versus 6 fly balls. Now, he only got 4 strikeouts, but he allowed just 1 run there to Baltimore. So that was like the perfect matchup. It was like a 90th percentile outcome. On the other side, Jake DeGrom did very well against Atlanta. He went 5 innings. He went 72 pitches, very economical because he got 8 strikeouts off of them. That's hard to do on just 72 pitches. So he was doing quite well there. Tougher matchup, though, than Atlanta. Can we say that? Can we say Boston's tougher than Atlanta?
I think that's still fair.
Even without Mookie Betts, I'm still there.
Another year maybe the Braves will pass him, but we got to give some.
We got to get Dansby Swanson, Nick Markakis. He'll come back. Well, he'll be 37 next year if there's no pandemic. He'll opt in. Now that there's a DH, hey, because it's not like he's great in the field anymore. But
that's it. There you go. Another 5 years for Markakis now.
But Eovaldi and DeGrom, what do you got here for us?
So Eovaldi's another one of those guys, maybe I'm a little bit biased because he did not do well when he was here in the Bronx and I got to see it firsthand. But there's not a lot to love. I'm not a huge believer in him. He's a 4.2 4.5 projection, which is strong. Decent K per 9 projection, but he was 5.99 ERA, 5.90 FIP last year out of the pen. Year before that, he was a lot better, 3.81 ERA, 3.6 FIP. So there's quality there, 22% strikeout rate, 4% walk. So he had a great year the year before. So we'll see. We have to see what pitcher he is, what he's going to be in the starting rotation for us this year. He's a guy against this Mets lineup. I think I'm going to give a little bit of leash before I start really rolling him out there in too many big numbers. I want to see what he is this year and get a little bit of, there's not that much time to do it, but I want to see a little bit more from him before I start jamming him. And he's fine to play if you like him. The price tag's okay. I'm getting a decent projection on him. He's just not a guy I trust too much. So with a bunch of other options on the slate, I'm not sure I'm going to be looking there. DeGrom, guy I definitely look at against anybody.
Yeah, there's no question about that. So compare the 2 top guys here, DeGrom versus Garrett Cole. Garrett Cole also went 75 pitches in his first start, 10 fly balls, 1 ground ball, 1 walk. Did he not get any 5 strikeouts?
So that's a low strikeout game for a guy like Cole. We've seen him.
And to be fair, that was the short one too. It just went those 6 innings against Washington.
That's right. That was a short start, but I mean, Garrett Cole, 34.5% strikeouts the year before last, almost 40, 39.9 last year, with just a minuscule 5.9% walk rate. So dominant starter coming in again, and another guy that went to Houston and kind of got tweaked a little bit and is just dominant now. I don't really need to compare the 2 pitchers, I don't think. What we need to compare is the matchup. Garrett Cole's starting against the Baltimore Orioles tomorrow. That's a no-brainer. He's going to be your top option. He's going to be the highest point projection on every site. If it's not, don't trust it. That's your guy. He's probably going to be owned out the nose. It is something that you got to keep an eye on with that. If DeGrom is significantly less owned than he is and getting a lot less play, he's somebody I'm going to look to, even against this powerful Red Sox lineup. If not a lot of people are on him, that's a spot I'm going to try and exploit. And there's no reason to think that he can't stand up a good start against these guys. I'm not getting as strong a projection on him as I normally do, but for the slate, it's fine. And I would think that would trend up north of the number I'm getting. So I'm going to be looking at DeGrom a lot tomorrow, I think.
All right, now we're not 100% sure who's starting for Baltimore. We're assuming it's Asher Wojciechowski since he's kind of been the one that's sort of been postponed, but everybody's, come back around onto the rotation. Not that the Baltimore Orioles have anybody at the top of the rotation that they really want to use, because frankly, they're all fourth starters at best. But just keep an eye on that. Tough matchup going against the Bronx Bombers there. But Wojciechowski is the one that could be drawing that short straw. The next one here, we've got the Cardinals at the Twins. Cardinals are taking it on the chin right now. 6 earned runs in 3 2/3 innings for Carlos Martinez tonight. Gave up 2 home runs there. 1 to Josh Donaldson, 1 to Polanco. Just point that out because you and I didn't really like Carlos Martinez. He gained some swell around the industry throughout the day. I'm not there. This is not a victory lap. We could just as easily be having a different conversation here, because when I went back and looked at him, his numbers were much better from the bullpen than I remembered last year. I think he only hadn't realized he had 25 saves or something like in that neighborhood, because we don't care about saves anymore in DFS, and I don't do that much season long. But he was a decent closer, decent numbers, but him coming back into the starter, I just did not feel comfortable with it because he's had so many darn injuries throughout the years, and he was going against the Twins, which are incredibly tough matchups. So I was surprised to see him. And when I say gain interest, people were talking about him as a cash game second pitcher. That's totally reasonable. And I think he got up to about, we were projecting, I think 30% ownership on the two pitcher sites. Again, very reasonable. I just came in at 11. Whatever it ended up being, I was the third of whatever the projected. I haven't gone back and looked at what the actual one. I talked myself up off of 5 because I'm like, am I missing something? Am I being biased? And that's what you have to look at for all this. And that's where I just wanted to use another example for leverage and stuff. I had my preconceived notions. I don't know if they were right or not. I still don't know if they were after this game. One outing does not make a confirmation, of what the decision we made. But you want to put yourself in a spot where you can take advantage of good or bad. If he had been able to hold his own, I wouldn't have been totally dead. I would have just been chasing 2/3 of the field that had him on their lineups. That's not 2/3 of the entire field. That's just of those lineups. So I didn't like being 6-1 against him. So I said, I'll go 3-1. Because if it goes bad, maybe I get lucky and I have the right hitter combinations around him if he has a good outing. So anyway, just kind of where we are.
Yeah, and that's it. Like you said, you can at least winnow down that field that you're going against if it doesn't hit. If your play either does or doesn't hit, you want to look at the field and see what's going to happen. What are the lineups going to be against me if? And look at those various ifs. Think about the most likely ifs on the slate, and then think about how to play with it. Whether it's, all right, if I think this is going to happen or not happen, what's the angle? What happens then? And where can I take advantage of that? So I think that's really sharp thinking on your part. And I'm very surprised actually there by the 2 home runs. One of the things we were saying in his favor,
we said less than half per 9 over the last 2 years. That's like non-existent. That's like Bat Boys, or trying to go against him. Just, it's not going to happen.
Right. And that's my power metrics and my home run model were completely suppressed. Everybody was under 5 on that team today, which never happens. So I'm very surprised by those 2 home runs. That's interesting.
Yeah, the 6 runs I would have thought, but I would have thought a couple doubles, and I would have thought his control had left him, not giving up 2 home runs.
Yeah, a few walks, a couple smacks here and there, but the 2 home runs, very surprising. That's interesting.
All right, on to our next one. Speaking of the Cardinals, we have Daniel Ponce de Leon going against Rich Hill, who had been pushed back in his start. He was dealing with some soreness. Reminder, he had elbow surgery on his throwing arm at the end of the season. He's a guy that perpetually has blister issues because of the pitches he chooses to throw, have a high spin rate, and I for life of me can't remember if it's a slider or if it's a curve that he does, but in any event, the way he grips the ball tends to lead to torn fingernails and blisters. So we'll see what happens. I don't really like him going against the super duper righty heavy lineup of the Cardinals. We don't know for sure what's going to happen with Ponce de Leon. So they want him in the rotation. He kind of bounced back and forth between AAA and the show last year, made a few starts, craptastic walk ratio, adequate strikeouts here and there, but no consistency. So it's tough to want to have him go against the Twins. Putting it this way, I would rather have Carlos Martinez going against the Twins than Ponce de Leon. So I don't really like either of these guys. That means the field's probably not. So now we got to think again, just like Fezzik had to in the Battle of Wits in The Princess Bride. What do you want to do in this one? I had to get a Princess Bride reference.
It could not possibly be the pitcher in front of you.
Yeah. Oh, it's not Fezzik. Fezzik's is Andre the Giant. I can't think of the other guy's name. The other guy just passed away. Yeah, right? You're right.
Yeah, I don't know what his real name is though. And I'm a movie guy. He's in that guy for sure. The old Bill Simmons that guy category. He's been in a ton of things. No idea what his name is.
Oh, it's first. I'll look that up and then
think on that. I'll talk.
We'll circle back because I do want to. We want to give him a shout out because I believe it was Wallace Shawn as Zini. Yeah, he passed. I believe he passed.
Did he? I had missed that one.
Oh, maybe not. My apologies. He did not.
Oh, good news.
Ooh, good
news, everybody. Yeah.
He was trending last week for something, so I don't know what it was. I had just assumed that he was ill, but no, he seems to be still with us. He's 76 though, so.
And we're not as big fans if he was trending for bad reasons. We haven't had a chance to look into that. So
yes, my apologies.
Hopefully it was good reasons, and he is still in our good graces.
Yeah.
Ponce de Leon, I think we mentioned Nuke Lelouch before, and I'll give you for Ponce de Leon is Ricky Vaughn without his glasses before he got his glasses. He is wild, man. He's all over the place. Going to be walking the world if he gets more than one inning. We'll see whether he ends up being an opener or a full starter tomorrow, but he's not a guy I want to get to at all. Definitely not against this Twins lineup. They're loaded. This is the kind of lineup that gets a guy like that.
He passed on the 18th of July. He did. I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
They hadn't updated the article I was looking at. I believe because there's conflicting things and it says it's still this page is still under construction, so I'm not seeing anything else, but there we go. So in any event, very sad.
In any event,
and if he's still here, we're happy.
Where he does that about Herbie Hancock or some old celebrity, and for 5 minutes he just keeps playing with the crowd saying, "No, I'm just kidding. He's alive.
Yeah.
But he's dead. He's dead. No, he's alive." He goes back and forth. So anyway, going back to the slate, going back to baseball, Rich Hill is a guy that, if it wasn't for those injury issues that you mentioned, he's a guy that would probably have been an ace, for a lot of years here. He's put up the numbers. He just cannot stay healthy. He's been around 110 to 130 innings pitched the last couple of years. Great K numbers, 28 to 32% strikeout rate. He's a middling kind of a walk guy, but it's down to 7.5-ish the last 3 years. So he's managed his control a little bit. It's just being able to get through 5 or 6 innings reliably, just being able to not have one of those blisters pop up and come out in the second inning and kill our lineups. Hill's a guy I'm going to get to here, even against those Cards, even against some of those righties. I'm not sure how much yet. I haven't dug into it too much, but I like the strikeouts. While he's healthy, he's a guy I like to get to. The price is reasonable at $7,500 on FanDuel. Projection-wise, he is in my top, looks like 8, and it's pretty tight packed between, I'm going to say 4 and 8 there. So he's a guy I'll definitely have some shares of. I'm going to go a lot to the top 2, and I'm going to probably get pretty broad through the middle of it tomorrow. So I'm definitely going to like him. I do like both of these lineups. I mentioned the Twins, definitely going to smash some Twins bats in there in this pitching situation. And then you mentioned the Cards, guys like Paul Goldschmidt, guys like Paul DeYoung, Yadi Molina even as a catching option. Tremendous power with Tyler O'Neill from the back end of that lineup. So the things you can do here to mix and match. Tommy Edman up top gives you a little bit with his bat and his legs. So he's an intriguing guy from a DFS perspective. So there are stacks in that lineup that you can build as well.
All right, now I'm back. I'm stuck on Wallace Shawn. I cannot find confirmation one way or the other.
what does IMDb have, or like Wikipedia? Just something.
Wikipedia doesn't say anything, but then 2 other sites I go to says it was last week. Now, okay, here's one. Somebody on Twitter says, "Wait, Wallace Shawn isn't dead." Okay, this may not. Was this one of those meme things that I wasn't aware of? All right, I'm gonna.
I can't imagine being a celebrity.
Final answer. We're going with Wikipedia. He is still active as an actor. It says so. I'm going to say that he is.
It looks like IMDb just has a born date.
Yeah.
Born 1943. So I'm going alive too. I think we can go
right.
alive.
I just hate to be the bearer of bad news if there are no bad. There's no bad news. I mean, I'm glad there's no bad news, but now I'm
definitely. I mean, and you know, God forbid some like third cousin or something of his is listening. We don't want to be the people to break that news to that third cousin.
No, and I guess you can't trust everything on the internet.
Now, hey, I'll be damned if I'm going to hear you talk about the reliability of information on the internet.
Crowdsourced and free. What could go wrong? All right. Well, there you go. Now I'm going to have to watch The Princess Bride this weekend because that is a top 10 all-time movie.
Oh, absolutely kill it. Did you see when Carl Reiner, unfortunately, sadly passed?
Yes.
The last thing he ever filmed. Did you see what that was?
Yeah, it was him doing something with his son, Rob Reiner.
Yeah, and Rob in the bed, and he was the grandpa reading the book. I thought that was so touching. I mean, I just loved Carl Reiner, and him and his friendship with Mel Brooks was just so special and cool, and for 50 years or whatever.
Yeah, that's always very impressive. A lot of fun there. Okay, we'll have to talk. We're getting really long because I have another fun movie story with Mel Brooks, but we'll save that for another podcast. We'll talk about that next week. That is what we call a tease because, good God, we have games. We have games we need to talk about. Moving along here, Johnny Cueto going against the Pod Squad. Cueto coming back here. This one is in San Francisco. He looked adequate against the Dodgers with his off-balance throws, meaning turning around his back all the way around to face exactly opposite of the pitcher before coming in. The herky-jerky release was still there, the somewhat deception. The hair is also a distraction. He's kind of out of control. He's at home. He's against the Padres, who are good. They're still not great. I'm okay with Johnny Cueto as an SP2 here. I'm hoping he doesn't implode. We're not going to get a strikeout per inning. I hope he gives up less than half a run per inning. That's my expectation.
Yeah, and I think as an SP2 type of a play, depending on price, depending on what you're trying to do, I think it's reasonable. He gets the park factor on his side. He's still capable. He's more of an artist in there than he is a strikeout artist. He's somebody who's going to be trying to paint the corners and trying to get away with a lot. And he's not blowing anybody away these days. Mid-4s FIP projection from Steamer, 715K per 9. So like you said, not a ton of strikeouts going to be happening here, but he's a guy that could dance his way through this lineup and come up with a reasonable enough start for an SP2 to give you the points that you need. Not going to blow anybody away, not going to set the world on fire, be the highest scoring pitcher for you. But he's a guy that you can get to, a guy that you can reasonably play in limited deployments. I don't hate it.
All right, now we're thinking Chris Paddock is going against him. That's listed on most, but not all of the sites. So I feel relatively comfortable that it will be him. He did pitch last Friday. He went 81 pitches, had 8 ground balls, 8 fly balls, 4 strikeouts, did not allow a run in 6 innings against the Diamondbacks. I like him against the Giants, who are not good and who are a quad A team at best when they're missing Brandon Belt and Buster Posey and even the aging Buster Posey and Longoria and all those guys. So their bats are really in trouble at this point. When Alec Dickerson, former Padre cast-off, is batting cleanup for them.
Right. When that's your cleanup hitter, you might have some roster issues. So, and to be perfectly clear, even when all those guys who are names brand guys that we know, they're all getting up there in years. So this is not a good lineup, even when those guys are healthy. But it's certainly improved over what we're seeing here. You've got Pablo Sandoval basically is less out of shape than Kung Fu Panda at this point. So he is ridiculous. But I think this is a lineup that Paddock is going to tear through. He's my second highest projected FanDuel pitcher. I like the price as compared to the other aces. At 9,700, you're saving 200 or 2,000 rather off of Cole. I love Cole, like I said, but this is a pitcher I'm going to be getting to in a lot of my lineups. I think he'll be popular, but I think if he's coming in that 20, 25 range on FanDuel, I might push it up and try and get more of them in here because I really love the spot for him. I think it's a great park. He's a kid who strikes out a ton of guys. He's a 27% K rate as a rookie, 5.5 walks. So not putting on a lot of guys. 3.33 ERA to a 3.95 FIP last year as a rookie. So guy who's got a lot of upside. Really, really love him.
Yeah, just putting it in perspective. I mean, Dickerson, plucky hitter. He basically has one full season in the majors. Came over, had a nice, just torrid hot streak last year when he was essentially released. I can't remember if there ended up being a trade or he was claimed on waivers, but basically he was released by the Padres, and then San Francisco picked him up, and I think they played he went on a tear. I want to say he played against Arizona and then not that much longer against the Padres, which were division opponents, and he had home runs, which we weren't expecting. He's 30. Mike Yastrzemski, yes, his grandfather was awesome. He debuted last year as a 29-year-old rookie in the majors. He will be 30 on August 23rd. So this is not like we have young guys coming up. So even though I said those other guys were old, their current guys are old. Wilmer Flores, not a spring chicken anymore, and Brandon Crawford, good God, he's closer to 40 than he is to 30. So, wow, yeah.
And when we see stuff like that, on these guys who come up and make their debuts at 29, 30, 31, whatever it is, those are guys that we know you can just kind of scratch off. You never want to totally scratch somebody off in baseball, of course, but those are guys we know we don't really have to care about. There's a reason they were in the minors until they were 29 years old. They're filler.
Right. And hey, they're better than 0.1% of all people playing baseball. We're not disputing that they're not major leaguers, but that's your leadoff and your cleanup hitter. Just saying, there could be problems ahead.
They better leadoff and cleanup hitters than you and I do, but not by as much as your average major leaguer would.
Right, now I gotta see how old do you think Wilmer Flores is?
32.
He is. Oh my God, he's only 28.
Really?
Oh my God, Brandon Crawford's only 33.
Wow. I would have gone 35 probably for Crawford. I'm surprised Wilmer's only 28. I feel like he was here in Queens for a lot longer.
Yeah, well, Crawford was called up in 2011. Has pretty much played every day since. So
yeah, Crawford's a guy that's just been around for a while.
Huh. Interesting. All right, wrapping it up here as we get towards the end. One game left. Justin Dunn. So this is Mariners. Not exactly sure if he's the opener. They're giving him a shot to make the rotation, but who knows what that means this year, because the rotation is kind of it might be like what we would normally call swingmen or long relievers a couple years ago. I think that's kind of what the back end of most rotations are going to be. Is he going to take the ball every fifth or sixth day? Potentially. How many times is he going to get out of the fifth inning? I don't know. So you've got him going against the Angels. Not great matchup. Late slate, yeah, he's in play. Main slate, I really don't feel good about it. Andrew Heaney on the other side is someone that we should be interested in against the Mariners, who were a little bit plucky there against the Astros. But the Mariners at some point, that's going to be a mirage. We did get 67 pitches out of Andrew Heaney, who was dealing apparently with a sore back. But he did go 4 2/3, 6 strikeouts, 9 fly balls, just 1 ground ball. So he was kind of living on the edge there. That's an adequate performance, but it's one that's not really going to make us feel that great, knowing that he might have tweaked his back a little bit. Now, is that just general soreness because these guys have been on layoff, etc.? And if you talk to any pitcher the day after their start, they can barely raise their arm above their shoulder. That's just the way it goes because the body's not designed to do that. But we'll see. Do you like either of those guys as we wrap up here?
I do. I'm a Heaney guy. I wasn't on him last time around. I was more on the Oakland side of things. That was that start. I believe that was the same one that went into extras and also won it with the walk-off because I had him in that lefty. So that was that game. Didn't like him that much in that matchup. I was getting good numbers on Oakland. But in this spot, I love him. He's another guy that I'm going to be getting to. He's my 4th highest projected starter on FanDuel. And for 7,100 over there, that is a bargain against this lineup. So that's a guy I'm definitely going to be looking a lot to. High 9s K per 9 projection from Steamer, low 4s FIP projection. manages the walk fairly well. He's projected to 249, so he puts guys on, but he can get out of it with the strikeout. Last season, he was 4.18 FIP and a 28.8 strikeout rate to a 7.3 walk rate. So not bad on the walk side, and just strikes out a ton of guys. Year before that, in 180 innings, so a bigger sample size, he was a 3.68 FIP, xFIP and a 24% strikeout rate to a 6% walk. So guy who puts up quality numbers, a little bit better than what the ERA numbers have been over the last couple of years. So I think there's a lot in this arm, and he's a guy I'm definitely going to be looking to put up some strikeouts against this lineup. There's a decent amount of Ks here. A lot of guys that are in the mid-20s for their projections, so around league average, but they're all around there. So there's not really that spot where, hey, there's two hitters there that are 15% that he's not going to get. He's going to have a chance to strike out basically everybody in this lineup every time they come up. So Heaney's a guy that I think we can, even if he only goes 5, you're not getting that quality start on bonus on FanDuel, but we said there's only probably going to be 2 or 3 guys that do get it. So if Heaney gives you 5, he could give you a decent enough point total. On a 2-pitcher site, I definitely want to get to him. If I can build a lineup with a stud and with him, and I don't have his price in front of me. Do you have his DK price?
Who?
Heaney?
I do. It is 79, and we're going to talk about Justin Dunn, who's 4,500 on DK. He is truly priced as a reliever, so I'm looking up some of his minor league stuff. But yeah, Heaney's good at 7,900 on DK.
Yeah, for sure. That's a guy that you want to be jamming into that SP2 spot. You should be able to get to like any bats that you want and another stud pitcher if you do that. So that's a play that I really like for tomorrow. I'm going to be digging in hard on Heaney in that. You're going to have to talk me off of him, I think.
All right, so here's the book on Justin Dunn. So he came up through the Mets organization, low A, high A, and then double A in 16, 17, and 18. Basically averaged 10 Ks per 9, about 3.5 walks per 9. Did not give up many home runs, less than 0.4 per 9. His ground ball rate was decent in the mid 40s. So last year for the Mariners, he was at double A. He started 25 games, won 131 innings, 10.8 strikeouts, 2.7 walks per 9, just under a home run per 9. He got higher than average left on base, in my opinion, at 70%, but always hard to tell in the PCL where he's pitching because you have a lot of good ballparks there for hitters. Yeah. Ground ball rate went down to 37. Home run to fly ball jumped to 11%. Now, he made 4 appearances down the stretch for the Mariners. He had not pitched more than 37 innings. They do want to make him a starter. They've said I'm just reading, Scott Service said he'll be a 6th starter, and they may still skip turns for him. This is one of those where when he starts, he's going to go 60-ish to 70 pitches is my guess. So he's going to have a cap, so he's not an opener, but they're going to treat him as the starter with the off days and all that stuff because that's what they want him to be. And I think he's 23 or 24. So they desperately need help. He's 24, but he's 6'2", 185. He's not exactly, a rocket arm kind of guy, but 4,500 on DraftKings. If he can make it 2 or 3 innings, give up 1-2 runs, maybe get 4 strikeouts, that will pay that number off if some of the other people implode. Or what can you pair with him? As you were saying, a Garrett Cole with him. All right, we can still get some hitters. Now average the 2 of them together, cost per dollar or cost per point, and you might get some different answers. So there's some flexibility there. Would it shock us if he had a negative score? No, it wouldn't. But 4,500 for a guy who's, I'm speculating, you're probably going to get 60 pitches. Price per pitch, he's probably the best guy on the slate.
And that's it. And at that price, jamming him into that SP2 spot, like you said, it leaves you a ton of money to spend. You can make up those points, that point differential with some bats. You can do a lot of special things with that. So even if he puts up a blank almost, I mean, you don't want that, but you don't have to sweat it quite as much as if that happens from an $8,000 and $9,000 pitcher. Right. So there's a lot to like on that. I'm learning about him as you were talking about him there. So when you said Mets, it kind of pinged in my head who he is. He was the other piece of the Diaz deal, I think, right? He went over there with
think so. I think that's where he was from. Yeah.
That's why his name was in my head a little bit, but I don't know a lot about him from the pitching profile.
Right.
Just going by Steamer, 5.0 FIP projection. mid eights K per nine. So he is, like you said, a guy who could pick up 4 strikeouts in a 60, 75 pitch performance. So at that price tag, makes some sense. Definitely makes some sense.
And just for comparison, I was assuming he'd be somewhere between 6 and 7 before I looked him up on DK, because that's a lot of times where they've kind of started putting their openers last year and then even a little bit this year. But if we kind of look at their bottom of their pitching in this year, so it looks. Oh, somehow we didn't talk about Pittsburgh and Milwaukee, did we? We just skipped them.
We might have skipped it,
because we have Woodruff and Musgrove. Musgrove is 5,300. I'm not thrilled about Musgrove, but a legit starter who can go 80 pitches at the beginning of a season for 5,300 against a dangerous matchup. Okay, I'm interested. If it's Asher Wojciechowski, he's 5,800. Johnny Cueto is 6. Christian Javier is 6,600. Now, I don't really want him against the Mets. I'd rather take my chances against a somewhat watered-down Angels lineup. Well, or one that's really built around 3 hitters and 3 hitters only. Because, let's face it, Albert Pujols is 40. He's now batting 6th. No knock on him, but come on. So we're looking at Trout, Anthony Rendon, who just debuted tonight after having a sore, forget if it was back or elbow or whatever it is with him, and then Shohei Ohtani. So that's really the only scary people we see out there on the Angels. So I'd rather take the chance in that matchup. But, Danny Duffy at 7,100, Rich Hill at 72. There's going to be some interesting decisions here on DraftKings, unlike on Friday Monday where they had Merrill Kelly at 10,000 and some of these wild price points. Again, we all play with the same salary and the same constraints, but it just changes your perspective and your lineup construction. So I don't mind that these are kind of shifting around, because we look at this all the time. We should have an advantage. We don't want it to be the same every single day if it's going to cause other people to make mistakes. Any chance where your opponent, you can get your opponent to have an opportunity to make more mistakes than you, that's good. That one, it gives you more chances to be right, but it also gives them more chances to be wrong, which usually works out better in your favor.
Absolutely. And that ties into what you were saying before. Every time we get one of these shaky slates where weird things happen, a game scratches, 2 games scratch for COVID, 1 rains out, and chaos reigns supreme with a few other guys coming out of the already announced lineups. You get something like that, and you get a player like Alex who goes out and wins $250,000 on that slate. Those are the kind of slates that we like, because we've got information to work with. We're paying attention. We're on top of these things. And hopefully all the subscribers out there are getting the information and following along and picking these things up and using it and weaponizing it, because that can make a gigantic difference. I think it's Mandarin that has the expression or that has the same word for crisis and opportunity, if I'm not mistaken. There's an old great Simpsons quote that's in my head. Homer responds to that statement by saying, yes, crisitude. So it could be a crisitude type of a spot. You never know. And that's what you want to take advantage of, guys. That's what we're looking for here. So anytime there's something weird, anytime the sites change the pricing model or the paradigm through how they're putting these things together, that's great. That's a day to dig in, spend your day looking at DFS, because you will find angles here. Just real quick before we move on, you mentioned that price on Joe Musgrove. I wasn't aware of that DK price. I love that spot. Yeah. Joe Musgrove, that cheap, I don't care who he's going against, even that Brewers lineup. He's a guy with a lot of upside. Supposedly he's throwing a little bit more with a little bit more velo and a little bit more spin rate this year. So he's a guy I'm actually a little bit excited about, and I might play on DraftKings tomorrow just because of that. You just really perk my ears up, pique my interest on Joe Musgrove over there tomorrow.
All right. Well, we managed to hit an hour plus on this, so we're going to wrap this up just so we can give this some shelf time. But I do want to say, who was your home run call of Monday?
Yesterday?
Yes.
Who was it? Was
Keston Hiura?
For today? Yeah, for today. It was Keston Hiura.
He has a home run. Terry is now 5 of 6 on his home run calls. Just saying, you may want to listen to what he's got. So we have spotlight hitters. If you made it this far, those are free. That's a free article. It goes up each night. Terry, tell them what you got and how you update throughout the day.
Yeah, so I've got Quick Hits, comes out overnight at somewhat unpredictable times. I like to knock it out after I get off of here, but I do have to eat something, hang out with the dog for a little bit, and then do all the research to get it together. So it goes up reliably, sometime between 10 and 2, depending on how I'm doing. But that's where your home run picks are going to be. I do a home run pick for every team, the top 1 or 2 guys. I give you one of those, and then I make my home run call at the bottom, which we just mentioned. I'm 5 for 6. Give you a couple stacks in that piece and some early overnight analysis. And then the next afternoon, I do my stack slants. which is looking for some of those oddball angles into either a really unique approach to a chalky popular stack or a stack that's maybe going under the radar using Alex's stack tool. So those are my two main pieces, and I'm on Twitter all day blasting stuff out. So I'm easy to find in the Slack channel. Come on in and say hi if you subscribe at the site. I'm around.
All right. With that, gamers, good luck.